welcome to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We focus on, as you know, if you're a fan of the show, workplace and workforce trends, trying to find workplace experts, people that can give us a distinct taste of what it is that they do and their unique expertise. We also find people that are doing something in their business that is very unique, that have something different. And today will be no exception. If you're ever out on the water south of Mobile, out in Mississippi Sound, chances are you've seen the work this guy does. This is Lane Zirlott, and I'll have him on the line momentarily. Lane is an oyster farmer, and he created and his family own Murder Point Oysters. Now, I'm seeing a remarkable trend here, and I'll get back to Lane momentarily, of the boutique business. Boutique. So we've talked about, we've had microbrewers on the show, a boutique microbrew. And I've learned that the microbrews were once a big national trend. I remember when Fat Tire came to Mobile, and we were so happy. I was so happy to get my hands on this microbrew. Now I'm told that these brews, these boutique brews, are not selling as much nationally. They're local. And you and I are drinking, if you're a microbrew fan like I am, something brewed nearby, a very even more boutique item than, let's say, Fat Tire was. A couple weeks ago, we had cigarclub.com on the show, and they were talking about the boutique cigar industry, small runs of cigars, uniquely blended, not mass market. And today, we're talking about a boutique oyster, a very unique thing. And I'm eager to learn exactly what a boutique oyster is, how this thing is defined, how you sell a boutique oyster. I'm by no means am an expert on oysters and what the selling points. If I'm stepping into a restaurant and meeting a chef, how do I describe this thing? Our economy seems to be going two different ways. I'm not talking about local. I'm talking about national. Big, quick turnaround. Huge. You can't market dominance. Think of Amazon.com. They're quick turnaround, and you can get nearly everything. Or exactly the other way. Small run, small batch, unique boutique items, boutique beers, boutique cigars, handcrafted boutique oysters, which is where our conversation will be today. And I'm wondering where the middle is. Is there a middle anymore? Do you either have to be in business a giant, a megalith with extraordinary economies of scale, or unique and small and offering things at a premium price point due to the amount of labor it takes to create these things? The small run, the small batch of beers take a lot of time. I understand there's a small batch of whiskey industry out there as well, handcrafted, as well as small batches of cigars that these people carefully grow the tobacco, source the tobacco, grow it, source it, roll it, and now small batch, unique oysters. Lots of time and attention paid to these types of things. So my clients in my business are typically larger Fortune 500 type of companies. And I am mostly exposed in my work, what I get paid to do in my work, to the big ones, the big economies of scale. I find these smaller ones, when I get to meet them, usually on this show or just bump into them somewhere, have a much, frankly, richer story to tell. And that's what we'll do. We're going to learn more about this. Before we come back, we'll have Lane Zirlott on the line. Think about your first time eating an oyster. Mine was at a bet. And my son, I got a picture not long ago of my son eating his first oyster. It was a result of a bet. We'll start with that with Lane, and we'll be right back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston.
I'm Michael Coward. My team and I will work with your corporate team to help you with your executive employee benefit plans. We offer executive retirement plans that allow you to favor your leadership team as well as 401k plans for your entire company. We've served the Mobile market for over 20 years. Call us at 251-342-0446 or find us online at cowardassociates.com. That's COWART associates.com.
Securities offered through Pro Equities, member FINRA, SIPC.
Think about how people really see you. The kid at the drive-thru just sees a coffee drinker.
Please pull forward.
Your local barista sees the person who loves a smiley face in their latte.
See you next time.
It's kind of the same way with insurance. Other insurance companies just see a customer. But a State Farm agent sees more. They see you as a neighbor. Your State Farm agent is here to get to know who you really are so they can help life go right.
Call me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, in Mobile at 666-1616.
We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston, and on the line with me right now is Lane Zirlott. Lane's family, 5 generations, according to the website. 5 generations of taking seafood out of the Gulf of Mexico and selling it. Is that about right, Lane?
That's right.
Tell me how you got into the business of oyster farming. There's got to be a story there somewhere.
Yeah, we got into it by accident. So by trade, we're commercial fishermen. We're shrimpers. We've owned several Gulf shrimp boats. We currently have 2. I was running the boats and managing the boats. Mom worked with a local organization in the town of Batre that dealt with commercial fisheries as a whole. Bill Walton come to town with Auburn and had a class to teach aquaculture, off-bottom farming, and they made it available to commercial people. No commercial oysterman signed up for the program. Mom was aware of it. You know, she was intrigued by it, wanted to, see it go and wanted to see it turn out good for everybody. But she knew with no people in the class, it wouldn't go very far. So she told Dad, she said, hey, let's sign up. We're commercial. Let's sign up for it. Let's just check it out. Well, they did it, and they loved it. But right off the bat, they seen it was going to be physical, and to really do anything with it, you're just going to have to do it a lot of volume. So I come in from the boats. I was off on a trip. They said, hey, Lane, we come across something that's pretty interesting. You might be interested in it. Why don't you come check it out, sign up for the class, and see what you think? Well, come to find out, it was oysters. I went to the class, and again, it just kind of caught us, man. It just kind of felt right. But I was running the boats at the time, managing the boats. They said, hey, let's just transition you home. You're home, you manage the boats when they're in, and while they're gone, you kind of play with this and let's see what we can do with it. Well, when I stepped off the boat, I never seen the boats again.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, it kind of took off from there, and it's been a roller coaster ride ever since.
Now the website says Murder Point Oysters, and I think the story of the Murder Point is well worth us discussing at some point. But tell me exactly the item that you sell. Is it called a Murder Point oyster, or is there a specific species of oyster that you sell?
Well, it's a Murder Point oyster, but the species is the Virginica. So that's your local oyster that's found here in the region. It's found in the Gulf. It's found about halfway up the East Coast. It's the Virginica oyster is the species. So it's the same oyster that's on the reefs. It's the same oyster that, the guys are catching in Louisiana and Texas, Mississippi. It's the same oyster that's in Florida. It's the oyster that's natural to this area.
So when I'm out in my boat on Mississippi Sound and I'm by the Dauphin Island Bridge and I scrape up against the bottom, I'm scraping up against a Virginica, is that what it's called, oyster?
That's right.
But yours, Murder Point oysters, aren't bottom grown. They're grown in, according to the pictures I've seen on your website, baskets suspended on poles. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they're off bottom. They never touch the bottom. And, when you get into... It's like apples and oranges, and it's a different market. It's a different taste. You can't really compare the two other than they're both oysters. And besides that, nothing's the same. So, yeah, you're able to take this oyster. It's suspended off the bottom. I can control the depth in which it's grown in, which in turn controls how much food it gets, the salinity to a certain extent. I can grow how fast it grows. I can slow it down. I can speed it up. I can control how dirty it gets, the foulant, the extra things that grow on the shell. You just have so much say in how it grows and the ultimate product at the end result when you start to farm raise oysters.
So is that all those variables that you mentioned, the salinity, how dirty, how quick it grows, et cetera, is that all dependent on the depth in which the oyster grows?
A lot of it is, yes. So, the deeper you go, the more abundance of food. but there's also predators down there. There's drill kongs. There's different things that want to attach to the shells, phyllanx, barnacles, stuff like that. You can pick them up, and because we're in the Gulf, it's a little warmer. I've got quite a bit of food even at the top of the water, but I get out of that predator zone, I get out of that phyllanx zone, and I'm just getting just enough where he's just getting good food and nothing else. Every farmer's a little different. We have a little different way of thinking about stuff, so we keep our oysters out of the water about 60% of the day. They come in and out of the water with the tide. We got them set where the tide does a lot of the work. But what this does, because an oyster, at the end of the day, is just a muscle. And so when he comes out of the water, you're conditioning to stay closed. If he never has to come out of the water, he never really seals off and never develops that muscle that it takes to stay closed. So this way, when I'm harvesting and he goes to the cooler and then he goes to the distributor, then he goes to the oyster bar, it's no big deal because he's conditioned to stay closed. And this gives us a little longer shelf life. Also having them set where they go underwater at the highest point of the tide. Well, the high tide is the saltiest point of the day. So when he only goes under at high tide, I can feel kind of safe that he's as salty as he possibly can be.
Yeah.
I can't make him saltier than what the water is, but if he never comes out, I don't know when he's eating. I don't know when he's taking in water, and maybe he don't eat during high tide. But if he's out and he goes under at high tide, hey, he's getting a good drink of water for the first time today. He's taking in water, and that water that he's taking in is the highest of the day. So, it's just little ways that you can manipulate things and encourage stuff, and you just get to play a big hand in what's going on with him.
Lane, did you have any idea that oyster farming had this many variables to it when you first looked at it? It sounds, you sound like you're almost describing a vineyard and a particular type of grape that you're trying to get to the right taste for a particular bottle of wine. It's so meticulous and crafted. And the word I used in the opening segment, which before I had you on the line, boutique stuff. Was it a surprise to you that this many variables existed in growing an oyster?
Not maybe a surprise, because we're known for our quality. When we were shrimp boats, we could unload shrimp anywhere up the East Coast. But you didn't necessarily know, or in the Gulf Coast, the East Coast, wherever we was at, we could unload shrimp. But you never knew you was getting any of my product. And what was so fascinating about the oyster and what made everything else go for me was these oysters have a story. So, you find your favorite brand of oyster and you follow these guys. You follow these guys on social media, different ways like that. It's almost like a cult following. Hey, these are the oysters that I like, and I'll follow these, and I'll buy the T-shirt, and I've got, all the merchandise. And that made me want to get deeper in the little nuances of it and made me want to really dial in exactly what we're doing in the growing of the oyster and how we could affect it and how I could, what we call the butter love, put my little love on it and make it kind of represent who we are. Make it kind of, when you get a Murder Point oyster and you know the story and you know the family and you know the people, you're getting something that somebody worked hard over. They didn't just throw them in the water, because a secret of it is anybody can grow an oyster, but with these boutique oysters, you're raising oysters.
Yeah.
So you go out there and you talk to them. And, you got them named, and who's got a little problem this week, and who's growing a little faster, and who needs a little help, who needs to be put down just a little deeper. So, and it reflects in the end product. And then when people are watching you, people are looking for your product. They're asking for it by name at the high-end restaurants, at the high-end oyster bars. It makes you take pride in it. It's not a commodity. It's not like it's corn or it's rice, and any corn and any rice is the same. And you ask the question, hey, a lot of times I just taste salt and Tabasco. Am I doing it wrong? I don't think you're necessarily doing it wrong. I think you're not doing it with the right oysters. So even here in Alabama, where you've got, I think, up to 15 different farms, you can go and Bill Walton could have spoke a lot more to this, but you can find different taste in the oysters, even here in Alabama. So I'm in Sandy Bay. We're located in a very unique position in the fact that everything north of us is wetland and a swamp. And we have a lot of fresh water that runs down across the top of the farm. But also, I'm about 2.5 miles north of Horn Island Pass. So I got the Gulf coming straight in on top of me.
Mm-hmm.
And everything kind of mixes right there on top of me. And then we're surrounded with pine trees. And so you can taste everything around us. You get a little bit of salt, rich, creamy, buttery aftertaste. So we hashtag everything butter love. You can taste the butter. And you can taste that in the oyster. Now, if you jump over to Dolphin Island and you go hit up Massacre Island, he's got just a little bit of mint in his oyster. It's a different flavor profile. Same state, kind of the same body of water, just a little different location. Different factors are playing a role in how he tastes.
You're describing, I mean, this is nearly the same conversation I had a couple weeks ago with the guy from Honig Vineyards and the different climates in Napa Valley and how they create a different taste in each of the grapes. And this is fascinating to me, Lane. We need to take a break, let the advertisers get their say, and I want to come back and hear more about this. I can honestly say I had no idea prior to us beginning this conversation there were this many complexities and variables and taste profiles in an oyster. And I want to hear more, and I want to read more of your bio too, because you've got some great claims to fame here. Folks, you're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. On the line with me is Lane Zirlott. Lane, what is your title at Murder Point Oysters? Are you boss, headmaster? Are you king? Are you CEO? Do you have a title?
It would have to be leader if anything else.
All right. Leader then of Murder Point Oysters. Fascinating conversation, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Cam Marston. If sales in your business comes from prospecting to create leads that lead to sales, I want to tell you about Sales Up Coach, a cloud-based system created for the next generation of sales professional. There's a big difference between being busy and being effective. And Sales Up Coach helps salespeople who rely on prospecting uncover which of their activities produce the greatest results. Over time, Sales Up Coach's machine learning hones salespeople's schedule to focus only on activities that generate the most bang for the buck. Your sales team interacts with Sales Up Coach on their smartphone, and sales managers can instantly generate reports to see who is on goal and who may need additional support. Go online and take a look at this new and very powerful sales tool. Go to salesupcoach.com/Cam Marston. Watch your sales team's productivity change.
Think about how people really see you. The kid at the drive-thru just sees a coffee drinker.
Please go forward.
Your local barista sees the person who loves a smiley face in their latte.
See you next time.
It's kind of the same way with insurance. Other insurance companies just see a customer, but a State Farm agent sees more. They see you as a neighbor. Your State Farm agent is here to get to know who you really are, so they can help life go right.
Call me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, in Mobile at 666-1616.
Hi there, I'm Josh Knoll with Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. As your business grows and you accumulate wealth, planning to protect your assets becomes more and more important. I work with individuals and business owners throughout Baldwin County to help them protect their prosperity. Call me today at 251-327-2124 or find us at gulfcoastfa.com.
Securities offered through Pro Equities, member FINRA, SIPC. We're back. I'm Cam Marston. On the line, Lane Zirlott. He is the leader of Murder Point Oysters. Lane, your bio reads that you've been featured on several Food Network shows, made several courses at the James Beard House in New York City, and the featured oyster at the South Beach Food and Wine Festival. Has that happened, or is that going to happen, the South Beach Food and Wine Festival?
It was in February last year. We were there, and we're going to be back in February this coming year. So it's ongoing thing for us right now.
Yeah, that's great. And I imagine that's a prestigious thing to have. South Beach is a strange and unusual place. I'm sure you as an oyster farmer may look around at the folks around South Beach and say, maybe these people are a little bit different from me. What'd you think?
It's exotic for sure.
It is exotic. So the way you were describing the oysters prior to the break, you actually said, and I don't know if you're kidding or not, you give them names, but you were describing them so intimately, this living creature, that harvest time has got to be hard for you, right? You've raised these things from a seed, and I want to know what that is. And then you're letting them go. Of course, that's the way you make your living. But are you a little bit sad to see these oysters go?
No, it's not sadness. It's a sense of pride because they've all been raised to do a job.
Yeah.
They're soldiers. They got a job to do, and they're going to knock it out of the park. And it's a sense of pride and fulfillment. I got a lot of great relationships with these chefs. I talk to Chef Bill Brand of Fisher's all the time. These guys want to know what's going on with the water this week, what's going on with the oysters. And so, when you send them out, it's pride because, people are looking for them. They're expecting them. And it's nice to be able to supply something that somebody wants, that they look for.
Who are your biggest customers?
Single restaurants, or I use a distributor. I use a lot of distributors. So Evans Meats in Birmingham is a big one for us. Inland in New Orleans is a big one for us. So we go through distributors and then they place them out in the restaurants. But because of social media, people can follow us. And I have people chefs reach out to me all the time. Different customers reach out to us all the time, wanting to ask questions, wanting to talk. So I've been able to build a lot of relationships with chefs through social media. Want to know about the product, want to know what's going on this week. What do I think about this and this? And so it's been, social media has been really big for us in the sense that we've been able to connect with people. For a long time, the distributors, had the purveyors in one hand and the restaurants and everybody else on the other side, on the other hand, and you never really got to connect. You never really got to talk. But, technology is great and it's advanced a lot of things. And one of the things that it's advanced is communication. And through social media platforms and stuff like that, you're able to connect to people, reach out to people and talk. And so it's opened up a lot of doors for us.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you've got relationships with one of my first jobs out of college was selling food for Nestle Brands food service, and I was always told to go to the back door of the restaurant, look for the handle that had the most grease around it, and that's where I would find the chef. You're going through the front door and being greeted at the front door. I was trying to sneak through the back door to sell my stuff.
When we got started, that's what we did. Me and my brother went to New Orleans, and we walked into every kitchen in New Orleans, and that's where we went. We went to the back door because I guarantee you, 99 out of 100 times, that back door is unlocked.
Yeah.
And the rule was we walked in and we started shucking. And as long as nobody touched us, we continued to shuck. And if they ever tasted the oyster, it was over with.
Yeah. They
had to know what it was, where could they get it. And we went before we ever sold an oyster, and we built momentum. And that way, because I did have experience in the seafood industry. We own boats. I knew what it was to deal with the processor. I knew what it was to deal with the distributor. And if I'd have called the distributor and said, hey, man, I got this great oyster and I want this much money for it, he'd have laughed.
Yeah.
But when he had chefs calling, when he had James Beard awarded chefs calling saying, hey, I got to have this product. And then he calls me and I'll say, yeah, no problem. I want this. Well, he knows he's already got it sold. He says, no problem also.
Right. And
everything works out. But yeah, man, we've walked in some kitchens. We go to New Orleans, we hit the restaurants. We go to, South Carolina, we go to Charleston, we hit the restaurants. And we went to a restaurant in Charleston, and it was 1:30. It was moderately busy, but the way the building was set up, you couldn't get to the back door. So we walked in the front door, and I asked the manager, I said, hey, can I speak to the chef? He said, what's this about? I said, well, I want to talk to him about these oysters. And he just blows up, makes a big scene. He said, can you not see it's lunch hour? We're busy, da-da-da. And he was loud. And it kind of got embarrassing for me. And I said, okay. And I think this was after the first time we beat Clemson. And so I slammed the oysters down in the raw bar and said, roll tide, and walked out. When my brother was there, he had sense enough to lay the business card down on the corner.
Yeah.
We walk out. Well, I don't know if you're sure, but a distributor called Blueberry Farms.
Yeah.
He was sitting at the corner, and he told the guy, he said, listen, I don't know you, but I know the two guys right there, and I know that oyster. He said, that's going to be the best oyster you ever had in your life. And sure enough, 15 minutes later, they called back. And they said, hey, man, we've got to have this oyster. Where did it come from? Can you come back? Can you talk to us? And by that time, we were gone. But a year later, we were back. And long story short, this guy walked up to me, and I was at another oyster bar. He said, "Hey, man, do you know me?" I said, "No, sir. I apologize, I don't." He said, "Well, we still tell this story about this crazy redneck that walked in and slammed oysters on the bar and hollered Roll Tide and walked out." But it happened to be that chef.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and they loved him. They loved him. And so it just, that's been my world, man. You go in, we called it guerrilla marketing, and we just went in and we would shuck oysters. And like I said, if nobody touched us, great. We just didn't stop.
Man, I can imagine the expressions you got in those kitchens as you came through the back door and just started shucking oysters, and people would look up and say, "What in the world is going on here?" But it obviously worked. Tell me how many oysters you sell a year. Do you measure them by the peck, the gross? How do you a bag? Tell me how you measure them.
So we sell to our retailers 100 count sack.
100 count sack. Okay.
Yep. And right now, we're pushing anywhere between 2,600 to 3,000 dozen a week is what we're selling. And throughout the Southeast, we got stuff at certain times of the year. Go out to California when it gets into the fall. We're getting some stuff out to California, up to San Francisco area. We got some stuff going as far as Maine, occasionally up to the Northeast. But mainly the biggest markets are right here in the Southeast right now.
Is that because the consumers are in the Southeast, or because that's just where your market is? Or is there any restrictions on how far you can ship the oyster due to it being shellfish or seafood?
Well, there's no necessarily restriction. You want to get things there in a timely manner. You want to get your customers, your restaurants, the longest shelf life possible. Virginicas are just have the greatest shelf life out of any of the other species, so they travel well. But the limiting factor to my markets are right now how many oysters I can produce. Yeah. So it's hard for me to get outside the Southeast footprint just because right now they're sucking up all my oysters. Yeah. So, our biggest thing in trying to grab more of the market share is producing more oysters. So what we did, we realized early that we had to have a supply of oysters. And to do that, you got to have a hatchery. So we went and opened the first private hatchery in Alabama. And you want to talk about really dialing stuff in. There's so many things that you can do with a hatchery. So when you start picking out the parents of your oysters, you can look for the ones that you like shape. There's some that got cups, the fan's nice, and you start to pick stuff out with your eye that's appealing to you and what you want your oysters to look like. So you start to pick the parents out, and then you start to spawn those parents, and you get the eggs, you get the sperm, you fertilize it. I mean, it's just, you can almost go overboard with how much you can really dial this oyster in to exactly what you want when you start spawning your own oysters. So you caught me slack-jawed here. You're spawning your own oysters because the demand is so great. You couldn't get, are they called eggs, seeds? What? Start seed. Seeds. You couldn't get enough seeds. So you said we need to start doing this ourselves. Yes, we was getting seed from the University of Auburn. They have a shell lab down Dolphin Island. Yeah. And for 2 years in a row, it wasn't their fault. It's just the demand got so much. We got our seed late. And so when you get seed late, it puts you harvesting even later. Mm-hmm. So, at this point, we had loans. We've got multiple people working for us. This was a real business, but yet we was dependent upon somebody else to get seed so we could function as a company. So I said, hey, if we're going to do this, if we're going to go further, we've got to get our own supply of seed. So we opened up a hatchery. And that's been a whole nother animal altogether. No kidding. It's crazy. So you put, I hate to get graphic, but how do two oysters meet and get along? And do you put them in a room together and play some music for them? How does that work? Well, yeah, we do play a little music, believe it or not. Little Percy Sledge works really, really well. Ooh. But you have individual tanks. So the oysters I've selected for what I like to see in them, the shape, the cup, the fan, we put them in individual tanks. I can induce spawning by changing the water temperature. So I make them think that it's that time of the year. I'll hit them with some hot water for 15 minutes. I'll swap over to cold water. And once we get them to spawn, you can see it in the water. You can see if it's eggs, or you can see if it's sperm. We'll collect all the eggs together. We'll get a count on them. We'll get them in a container, and we'll start to fertilize them with certain males that we want. Once we get to a fertilization rate that we're happy with, about 97%, we'll stock them. It takes about 18 days from that time for them to develop a foot. Once they develop a foot, they're ready to set to culch. They'll set on the culch. They'll begin to make their shell. And at that point, it's just a process of you screening them off and keeping them together by size. As they grow, they'll get bigger, and you'll just keep screening them off and keep moving them to appropriate stocking densities and containers. And it's just a process.
How old is the oyster that let's say I'm sitting in New Orleans and I'm eating a Murder Point oyster. How old is it that the oyster that I've eaten?
If you're going to eat a Murder Point, it can be anywhere between 10 months and 14 months. It's probably about the oldest as they get for us because we move so many of them. They don't really get a time to hang out. So at about 10 months, I can start moving a certain percentage of our crop out to harvest to market. And then about 12 to 14 months, the majority of that crop is going to market.
Is a older oyster more tasty than let's say I had a 6-month oyster in my hand and a 2-year oyster in my hand? Are they noticeably different in taste?
Not necessarily. They can be, but really what makes the taste is how long it's been out of the water.
Yeah.
It's kind of like aged meat. So if I take this oyster out of the water and he sits in the cooler for a couple of days, certain things begin to happen inside of him chemically. So certain enzymes are released in the muscle. Certain different things like that are going on. So when you taste him a week out, he's almost, and a lot of people say better than coming straight out of the water. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily an age thing. There is probably a little difference in the taste at 6 months. If you had a trained palate and you really was into that, you could really taste it maybe, but really what makes the difference is almost like aging that oyster and letting him be out a couple of days before you eat him. You can just really, really well taste it really, really good.
Yeah, so that means the shipping, the transport time is actually, as long as it's not too long, in favor of the taste.
Slightly. Yes, slightly.
All right, let's take a break. We're right up against the break. I want to come back. I got a handful more questions, Lane. I sent them in advance, and I haven't even touched any of them. I want to touch these after the break. You're listening to What's Working, folks. Lane Zirlott, Murder Point Oysters. Fascinating conversation. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Cam Marston. If sales in your business comes from prospecting to create leads that lead to sales, I want to tell you about Sales Up Coach, a cloud-based system created for the next generation of sales professional. There's a big difference between being busy and being effective. And Sales Up Coach helps salespeople who rely on prospecting uncover which of their activities produce the greatest results. Over time, Sales Up Coach's machine learning hones salespeople's schedule to focus only on activities that generate the most bang for the buck. Your sales team interacts with Sales Up Coach on their smartphone, and sales managers can instantly generate reports to see who is on goal and who may need additional support. Go online and take a look at this new and very powerful sales tool. Go to salesupcoach.com/Cam Marston. Watch your sales team's productivity change.
Think about your home. What do you see? Do you just see 2 stories or the stories of your toddler's first steps? Now think about your car. Do you see an odometer reading or your kids reading in the back seat? Other insurance companies just see a house. They just see a car. But a State Farm agent sees what your home and your car really mean to you. So why not give them the protection they deserve?
You can reach me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, at AllisonHorner.com.
This program is also brought to you by my company, Generational Insights. We've been in the seminar business for 20 years, working with clients ranging from Fortune 500 executives to locally owned mom and pops, helping them improve their sales, their management, their recruiting, and their retention. We give knowledge first and then build tools based on that knowledge that make people more successful at their jobs. And soon, we'll add customer service training. Check us out at cammarston.com. All right, Lane Zirlott on the line. I'm Cam Marston. The show, What's Working? Listen, If you want to get involved in the show, we've got a telephone line for you. It's not live. You leave a message or you can text this line, 251-260-8100. 251-260-8100. Leave us your thoughts. If you have a follow-up question for Lane, we'll get him back on the show at some point and ask him that question. Or if you have show ideas, many of the shows that we've done, over 75 now, by the way, have come from people who want to know more about a particular business. And I put my team on it. We find the right people, and we get them on the phone. Lane is undoubtedly one of the more interesting conversations we've had on the show. And Lane, I want to ask you, now there's this, and I see this on your website, the R month myth, which still lives actively out there. Is it a myth? Tell me, what do I need to know about the R month myth?
Well, it is and it's not. And there's really two parts to this question, two different thoughts. So in the wild, you have oysters that are spawning. They're diploids. They're going to spawn, and they spawn when it starts to warm up. So when you start to get into May, June, the oysters, they quit thinking about eating and surviving, in a sense of survival, but they start to spawn. And so they'll eat a little bit, but they're really just worried about reproduction. And so you get these oysters that a lot of time, if you open them up in the summer from the reef, that are spawned out, the meat looks poor. They have sometimes a white, creamy stuff inside of it. They get spawned out. They're not very appealing to eat. They're not very appealing to look at. And so in a way to kind of protect people, oysters weren't that good, they said the R months don't eat them. But another thing was temperature. So, it's getting hot in the R months. And there's different things you got to worry about, especially down here in the South in the warmer waters. You get Vibrio, that's, everywhere anyways. But the heat kind of triggers it, makes it a little more aggressive. So it was a way just kind of to blanket everybody and protect everybody. Yeah. So you just don't eat them when there's no R's in the months. But technology has changed. So right now in Alabama, we're under some of the strictest national guidelines as far as harvesting. So I have 1 hour this month from the time the oyster leaves the water to getting to mechanical refrigeration. Well, the great thing about my particular farm is I'm land-based. So we can back a truck right up to the pier, and we are always pre-harvesting, have stuff ready to go. So when it comes out of the water, it's a 450-foot trip down the pier to the truck. Yeah. So we're doing stuff in 10, 15-minute, 20-minute increments in refrigeration. So that beats down the heat. It don't let anything, bacteria begin to grow, anything like that. And that's really where that comes from, the R thing, is just, a way to protect people. Yeah. Because the oysters wasn't that good anyway, and it's also hot during that time of the year. Yeah. And so, but now, like I said, technology's changed, things are growing. We grow a triploid. So triploids do not reproduce. So they never think about survival. They never think about reproduction. They just eat all the time. Yeah. So where that reef oyster, that wild oyster, is poor during the summer months, that triploid is fat. He's still appealing. He still looks good. It's still nice to eat. So you get away from that spawned out piece of meat. And that's another reason why you wouldn't eat oysters with months that did not have R's in them, because they just wasn't good. But with a triploid, it's almost guaranteed that oyster is going to be an excellent oyster, even in the heat.
Are you getting a premium from this triploid oyster? Are you selling them at a higher rate?
You don't know as a consumer that you're getting a triploid. Yeah. You just know you're getting a good oyster. Yeah. Okay. Now, because I use triploids, it allows me to build my brand that people know that when they get a Murder Point, it's a good oyster. That in turn allows me to get a premium price. So yes, it does, but not because it's a triploid or that they know it's a triploid. They just know that, hey, Murder Points is a good oyster year round. I'll buy that oyster every time. So yes and no to your question. It does, but not for the apparent reasons.
When I remember as a kid going over the Dolphin Island Bridge and seeing those guys out there tonging the oysters. I haven't seen that in 20 years or more. Are people still harvesting oysters that way?
They do. The season now has been regulated down to, I think, a month out of the year. I think between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I believe, is the season now.
Yeah.
There's just, the natural reef is just falling off. And for whatever reason, and there's a ton of, theories out there, but for whatever reason, it's falling off. But that's what's so cool about what we're doing, because we do grow the triploids that do not reproduce, but I also have diploids out there. And these diploids, every year, they spawn and they put spat out in the water.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying, to reproduce and repopulate some of the natural reefs by having diploids in the water. They're putting that out, the spat, and it's going and it's setting and it's growing oysters. And in turn makes more oysters. But also what we're doing across the board is we're filtering the water. So each adult oyster will filter about 55 gallons a day.
55.
So if I got 5 million oysters out of there, all of a sudden, I can't do the math that quick, but we're doing 300-something million gallons a day in filtration.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we're very green in the sense of our business and what we're trying to do, try to give back to the environment. It's not simply just a take. We're trying to, in return, replenish and rebuild and see some things go because we're here.
Yeah. I didn't realize they filtered that much. That's an extraordinary volume of water every day, and I didn't realize that. Let me ask you about this. This has something to do with you. I'm not sure exactly what the impact is, but I was looking at the weather the other day, and the state of Iowa, hang in there with me now, got 50 inches of rain from June 2018 to May 2019, 16 inches above normal. And if you follow this, the Mississippi River is swollen, or at least was. They were opening all the spillways. The spillways were dumping tons of fresh water into Mississippi Sound. And the rain in Iowa is impacting, at least to the west of us, the salinity in the water. How are you reacting to that? Is that impacting you in any way?
Yeah, it impacts a lot. And earlier this year, we got down to like 3 and 5% salinity in our water. So
what is it normally? What does it need to be?
Well, it usually runs about 18 that time of the year.
Okay.
And it builds through the spring into the summer. We'll get about 22, 25, and then going into fall, we'll hit the upper 20s. But certain things have to be right in the water so we can spawn at the hatchery, and salinity is one of them. So when the eggs are not very fertile, when the salinity gets low like that, the sperm's not very active. There's a lot of things that we fought a couple months ago to get the hatchery going. It was a direct result of the spillways being opened. And of course, our adult oysters have to have a certain amount of salinity to die. As a rule, we don't harvest anything that's below 10 because the oysters just don't taste the best it could.
Yeah.
And, we're not just about selling oysters. We want to sell something that's right and it's good. And, we hashtag a lot of our stuff, like I was telling you earlier, butter love. And, it's just like butter. If you got too much salt in the butter's no good. But if you don't have enough salt in the butter, it's also no good. You got to have just the right amount of salt, and it really sets the butter off. It makes it good. And it's the same way with our oysters. If you get too much salt, that's all you're tasting. And if you don't have enough salt, it's not very good either. But when you get enough salt, just enough that you kind of set it up on your palate, you get that salt, and then you can taste, the pine trees, and you can taste the creaminess, and you can taste everything else that goes with that oyster. It's phenomenal. And that's the thing with people. Are they really tasting some oysters? Or are they tasting salt? We like to tell everybody here in Alabama, you can taste the actual oysters, any oyster here in Alabama, because of the salinity range. It's not like a block of salt. And you really can get all the flavor profiles out of that oyster.
Let's take this. We've talked about the spawning of the oyster and the Percy sledge and what that does to the oyster and the temperature changes, growing them.
Yes, 3,000 dozen a week.
3,000 dozen a week?
Yeah.
Good gracious. All right. And now we talked about getting them into the restaurants and how you did that. Fascinating. Good stories there. Imagine, Lane, you're eating the oysters you love the way you love to eat them. Define what that looks like to me.
I like them raw and just with a tiny drop of lemon juice, and that's it.
You eat them right out of the shell? You put them on a cracker?
Out of the shell. Nah, you can't have a cracker. You really want to taste this animal. You want to enjoy the labor that somebody put into it. You got to eat him straight up. Like I said, just a drop of lemon. Personally, I like just a tiny, tiny drop. Nothing too much. but just straight up with a drop of lemon.
Murder Point Oysters, can they come to your location and buy a sack of them?
Yes, so we actually have a storefront in Batre. It's on North Winslow Avenue, right before you get to the bridge in the center of town. We have a storefront. You can find them at Dolphins up in Mobile.
Sure.
Red and White carries them in Mobile. If you go to Jesse's across the bay, if you go a little further down, Fisher's always has them. They kind of use them as their house oyster. You can get them upstairs. You can get them downstairs. And just ask for them. Ask for them by name.
Yeah.
And, when you go to places, and always look for the tag. If you get Murder Points, ask to see the tag. We got a particular tag that we have. It's got our name printed on it. And that way you know you're getting Murder Points.
We're talking right now. It's the first part of August. What is, and we got just about a minute to go, what is your day going to look like today based on August? What are you doing today to get the Murder Point Oysters growing and out there nationally?
But right now, today, we're currently running stuff. We're tumbling it. We're getting that polished look added to it up in the hatchery. We're grading off some setters that was set a couple of days ago. We're taking stuff that's in the flow-through tanks, and we're grading them also and moving them up to the next stage on the screens. So it's a busy day down there right now. I'm currently getting ready to go to Nashville. There's a Made South event going on in Franklin, just south of Nashville.
Yeah.
So we're going to go up there this weekend and promote the brand, push out some oysters, let people taste them, see what's going on, and just a lot of brand promotion.
Lane, tell me about the gospel of the Southern oyster.
Well, the gospel of the Southern oyster is a simple truth. And that truth is a Southern oyster can hold its own against any oyster in the world. And it deserves its place at the finest white table restaurants anywhere. For a long time, you know, they've been growing oysters on the East Coast. They've been growing oysters on the West Coast. But the South, their oysters have always been thought of as 4 or 5 inch long, big piece of steak meat oyster. That's great to fry, great for a poor boy, but it's considered a warm water oyster. The oysters aren't that good. You didn't want it on a raw bar. It just wasn't appealing. But the fact of the matter is that's not necessarily true, because with aquaculture and off-water farming, the South is able to produce the finest oyster anywhere. And when you begin to get into the flavor profiles of these Southern oysters, it will blow your mind what you can find, what you can taste. You know, Murder Point might not be your favorite oyster, and that's okay. Don't give up on Southern oysters. Keep looking. Go taste you a salty bird from Panacea, Florida. Go find you a turtleback from Cody, Alabama. Go find you, an Isle Dolphin from Dolphin Island. Don't give up on Southern oysters because you didn't like just one. There's so many Southern oysters out there now in quality Southern oysters that, you know, it's a revolution in the South, so to speak. And it's cool that we're on the front line of it. That's
great. I didn't know that they had that reputation, and you're obviously championing a new interpretation of the Southern oyster and eliminating some old stereotypes. That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Lane, I appreciate your time. This has been a fascinating conversation. I can say, in total honesty, I had no idea so much went into what it is that you do, nor the extraordinary taste profiles of the products that you've created. And I am now a fan, and I'm going to put my hands on one of these things, perhaps this weekend, and give it a taste and put just a little bit of lemon on it and see exactly what it is that you're talking about. Thank you so much, Lane.
Thank you. And, hey, whenever you get ready, you come on down to the farm. We'll take you to the hatchery. We'll show you what's going on and let you see the process in person, and you'll have that much more of understanding about it.
I will take you up on that. I appreciate it. Lane Zirlott, folks, Murder Point Oysters. We'll be back in just a moment with final comments on the week. This program is also brought to you by my company, Generational Insights. We've been in the seminar business for 20 years, working with clients ranging from Fortune 500 executives to locally owned mom and pops, helping them improve their sales, their management, their recruiting, and their retention. We give knowledge first and then build tools based on that knowledge that make people more successful at their jobs. And soon, we'll add customer service training. Check us out at cammarston.com.
Life insurance is one of those subjects that make people want to change the subject rather than admit they probably don't have enough. I'm State Farm Agent Allison Horner, and that's why I focus on how the benefits of life insurance actually live on by asking people to think in terms of life without having to sell the house insurance, or life without having to give up college insurance. Find out how the benefits of life insurance can live on for your family. Call me, State Farm Agent Allison Horner, and get to a better state with State Farm.
Hi, I'm Jay Stubbs with First Protective. People approaching retirement are concerned about outliving their income and being a burden on their children. They fear chronic illness, and they want to leave a legacy. If you're a life insurance producer or in the traditional investment business and this describes your clients, we can help. Call me, Jay Stubbs, 251-604-7024, or find me online at firstprotective.com.
I don't know if you detected it like I did, but Lane Zirlott has more in common with a California wine grower than he does with the shrimper he used to be. He said he's never stepped back foot on that shrimp boat since he started working with the oysters, and the way he describes those oysters sounds much more like a California wine grower, some sort of expert in viticulture, I think it's what it's called, than a former shrimper. And while the show is never intended to be an advertisement for any of the guests on it, it sure does make me, and I suspect you as well, want to support them. That if I'm walking down the aisle and I see one of my guests' products, I can ask for it. If I see it on the menu, I can ask for it. I've become a big fan of 1186 Water that we interviewed not long ago, just because his story was so compelling, and Lane's is very similar. It's such a compelling story that if I have the opportunity to select his product, to ask for it, to acknowledge it if I see it on a menu, say something to the waiter or the chef or something like that, then I'm going to do so. And it excites me to hear these types of things and these types of stories. That's why I do this. I enjoy asking these questions and hearing these stories. So we're on 70 some odd different shows now, folks. We got a handful more lined up. We're always kind of looking out a couple of weeks ahead. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to share a nice announcement with you of things that we've got going on around here. I had no idea this would go on as long as it has. I'm continually impressed and amazed with the guests that we get, the stories that we hear, and humbled by the opportunity to continue to do this. It's a fun hobby and idea for me, and I hope you enjoy it as well as I do. I do look forward to the calls and the emails and the texts that we get from time to time, and that number is 251-260-8100. Call that number, text that number. You can email me directly, Cam, C-A-M, at cammarston.com, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. And if you want to find the show, you can check it out on my website as a podcast, cammarston.com. Across the top of the page is the podcast link, and you can find this show wherever podcasts are normally distributed. And if you do it through iTunes, leave us a review. Those reviews matter. We're working on next week's show. As soon as we're done with this one, we're starting to work on the next one, and we'll have another show for you next week. Have a good week, everyone.